The alien princess took my hand and asked for something I never expected. Lieutenant Jake Carter pressed his palm against the cool metal of the spaceship window, watching the planet Zarella grow larger beneath them. At 25, he felt the weight of Earth's hopes resting on his shoulders. The blue oceans and emerald forests below looked deceptively peaceful, but Jake knew this world harbored the powerful Zarella Empire beings who viewed humans as inferior. "Nervous, Lieutenant?" asked Captain Rodriguez, the grizzled veteran who had mentored Jake during the journey. Her weathered face showed understanding. She remembered her own first diplomatic mission decades ago. "A little," Jake admitted, adjusting his formal Earth Federation uniform. "Humans don't have their advanced technology or telepathic abilities. All we have is heart," finished Dr. Elena Vasquez, the mission's cultural advisor. The petite woman with kind eyes had spent years studying Zarellan customs. "Sometimes that's exactly what's needed." The ship touched down on the palace platform. With barely a whisper, Jake stepped out into Zarella's alien atmosphere, immediately struck by the towering silver spires that pierced the violet sky. Strange bioluminescent plants swayed in the gentle breeze, their leaves pulsing with ethereal light. The architecture reminded him of a cathedral he'd once visited in Barcelona, soaring, magnificent, designed to inspire awe. The palace courtyard buzzed with activity. Zarellan nobles glided across the polished stone floors, their movements fluid and graceful. Their pale, luminescent skin seemed to glow from within, and their star-bright eyes tracked Jake's every movement. Whispered conversations followed in his wake. He caught fragments in the universal translator. Human, primitive, emotional weakness. Commander Thane, Jake's military escort, tends beside him. The soldier's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm. "Stay alert, sir. The crowd's energy feels hostile." Suddenly, the whispering stopped. A figure approached through the gathered nobles, and Jake's breath caught. Princess Cerelia moved like liquid starlight, her tall, slender frame draped in a gown that seemed woven from the night sky itself. Her silver hair cascaded past her shoulders, and her ice-blue eyes held an intelligence that was both captivating and unsettling. "I am Princess Cerelia," she said, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of her species, yet edged with frost. "Why are you here, human? Do you truly believe your weak heart can solve our complex problems?" Jake straightened, drawing on his diplomatic training. "I'm here to help build peace, Your Highness, to find common ground between our peoples." Her laugh was like crystal chimes in a winter wind. "Peace? With humans? You don't belong in our sophisticated society." The crowd's cruel smiles cut deeper than Jake expected, but before he could respond, a thunderous crash echoed through the hall. A massive crystal pillar, one of the ancient supports holding the cathedral-like ceiling, began to topple. The crowd scattered in panic, but Jake spotted a small Zarellan child no more than 8 years old frozen in terror directly in the pillar's path. Without thinking, Jake lunged forward. His body slammed into the child, pushing them to safety just as tons of crystal crashed where they had stood. The impact sent shockwaves through the floor, and deadly shards scattered like deadly rain. In the sudden silence that followed, Jake helped the trembling child to their feet. The little one looked up with wide, grateful eyes before running to their parents. When Jake turned back to the crowd, he found hundreds of star-bright eyes fixed on him, no longer with disdain, but with something approaching respect. "Princess." Cerelia stepped closer, her expression transformed. The coldness had melted away, replaced by genuine surprise. "You saved a life," she whispered. "You risked yourself for one of us." Jake brushed dust from his uniform, his heart still racing. "I did what anyone should do." But even as he spoke, he realized that in this moment, everything had changed. That evening, Jake stood alone on his guest quarters balcony, nursing bruised ribs from his heroic rescue. The Zarellan night sky was breathtaking, 3 moons cast silver light across the palace gardens, while constellations unknown to Earth sparkled like diamonds. The scene reminded him of the observation deck at Mauna Kea, where he'd first dreamed of traveling among the stars. "Lieutenant Carter." Jake turned to find Princess Cerelia emerging from the shadows. Moonlight transformed her silver hair into liquid mercury, and her simple nightgown made her seem more human, more approachable than the regal figure from the throne room. "Your Highness," Jake said, offering a respectful bow. "I didn't expect. Why don't you date me, human?" The words tumbled from her lips like a confession, soft and vulnerable. Jake blinked, certain he'd misheard. His heart began hammering against His ribs. What? Why would you say that? Cerelia stepped closer, and Jake caught the subtle fragrance of Zarellan night blossoms that clung to her skin. Because I see something in you. Something real. Something alive that we've lost in our pursuit of perfection, Doctor. Vasquez had warned him about Zarellan directness, but nothing had prepared him for this. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Then don't say anything, Cerelia whispered, moving to stand beside him at the balcony rail. Just stay here with me for a while. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the alien stars wheel overhead. For the first time since arriving on Zarella, Jake didn't feel like an outsider. The princess's presence was warm and comforting, like sitting by a fireplace during a winter storm back on Earth. My people believe emotions make us weak, Cerelia said eventually. But watching you today, you acted purely from the heart, without calculation or political motive. There's strength in that. On Earth, we believe emotions make us human, Jake replied. They connect us to each other, drive us to protect what we love. What do you love, Jake Carter? The question hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Jake thought of Earth's blue skies, of his sister's laughter, of the hope that had driven him across the galaxy. I love the possibility that we can be better tomorrow than we are today, that different peoples can find understanding. Cerelia turned to face him fully, her luminous eyes searching his face. I've never heard anyone speak like that. In our court, every word is calculated, every gesture political. You speak from somewhere deeper. Maybe that's what your empire needs, Jake suggested gently. Not just calculated moves, but genuine connection. Over the following weeks, they met secretly in the Moon Garden, a hidden sanctuary where silver trees grew in impossible spirals and flowers bloomed with their own inner light. The setting reminded Jake of the botanical gardens in Singapore, but with an otherworldly beauty that took his breath away. During these clandestine meetings, Cerelia revealed the burden of her crown. I'm expected to marry Lord Crux of the Andorian system, she confided one night as they walked beneath the glowing canopy. A political alliance to strengthen our borders. But I want something real, Jake. I want to choose my own path. Jake listened, understanding the weight of duty that pressed upon her shoulders. He shared stories of Earth, of democratic ideals, of love matches, of the freedom to chart one's own destiny. Each conversation drew them closer, two souls finding solace in an unlikely connection. You humans are strange, Cerelia laughed during one of their walks. You smile even in difficult times. How do you maintain such optimism? Jake shrugged, picking up a glowing flower petal that had drifted to the ground. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's because we believe things can always get better, that love can conquer fear. But their secret meetings carried danger. One evening, as they shared quiet conversation beneath the silver trees, footsteps echoed through the garden. They quickly hid behind a massive trunk as one of the Empress's guards passed by, his suspicious gaze sweeping the shadows. If they discover us here, Cerelia whispered, her face pale with fear, the consequences will be severe. For both of us, Jake took her hand gently, feeling the electric tingle where their skin touched. We'll be careful, but I won't abandon you, not as a diplomat, and not as a friend. As the guards' footsteps faded, they remained hidden in their leafy sanctuary, hands clasped, hearts racing with more than just fear of discovery. Rumors spread through the palace like wildfire. Whispered conversations died when Jake entered rooms, and nobles watched him with calculating eyes. The Empress's disapproval was palpable during formal ceremonies. Her gaze could have frozen plasma. The confrontation came one morning in the palace courtyard, a space that reminded Jake of the Roman Colosseum with its tiered seating and central arena. Lord Varnick, a imposing Zarellan with aristocratic bearing and cold amber eyes, approached with the predatory grace of a hunting cat. Human, Varnick's voice dripped with disdain. Your inappropriate interest in the princess has angered many. If you wish to prove your worth, you must face the trial of honor. Ambassador Chen, Jake's diplomatic superior, materialized at his elbow. The elderly woman's face was grave. Lieutenant, you don't have to accept. This could be a trap. What exactly is this trial? Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew. Varnick's smile was sharp as a blade. Single combat in the arena. Ancient tradition demands it. Win, and the Empire may accept you. Lose. He shrugged eloquently. Before Jake could respond, Cerelia appeared, her royal composure cracking with worry. You don't have to do this, she whispered urgently. There are other ways. Jake squared his shoulders, remembering his father's words. sometimes a man has to stand up for what's right, regardless of the cost. If they want to test me, I'll show them who I am. The arena buzzed with excitement on the day of combat. Thousands of Zarellans filled the circular tiers, their collective presence creating an energy that reminded Jake of a championship boxing match at Madison Square Garden. The Empress sat in the royal box, her expression unreadable, while Soralia gripped the rail with white knuckles. Jake's opponent was Korik, a mountain of muscle and sinew who stood nearly 8 feet tall. The Zarellan warrior's reputation preceded him undefeated in formal combat, known for his devastating power strikes. As they faced each other in the arena's center, Jake felt like David preparing to face Goliath. "You're brave human," Korik rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "But bravery won't save you from my strength." The crowd roared as the battle commenced. Korik charged with the force of a freight train, his massive fists seeking to end the fight quickly. Jake danced aside, using speed and agility to avoid the crushing blows. Each missed punch cracked the arena floor, sending up clouds of crystalline dust. Jake had trained in multiple martial arts during his military service, but this was unlike any opponent he'd faced. Korik's alien physiology gave him advantages. No human could match enhanced strength, faster reflexes, skin tough as armor. Jake's only hope lay in out-hinking his opponent. The battle raged for long minutes. Jake struck where he could, targeting joints and pressure points, but Korik seemed barely affected. Sweat stung Jake's eyes as he dodged another devastating combo, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Then Jake saw his opening. Korik overextended on a massive uppercut, leaving himself momentarily off balance. Jake twisted away from the blow and struck precisely at the warrior's knee, not to cause permanent damage, but to create opportunity. Korik stumbled, and Jake could have pressed his advantage, could have potentially won the fight. Instead, he stepped back and extended his hand. "I don't want to hurt you more," Jake called out, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent arena. "This fight isn't about hatred or dominance. It's about respect, proving that different peoples can face each other with honor." The silence stretched like a held breath. Then, slowly, Korik lowered his fists. The massive warrior studied Jake for a long moment before reaching out to clasp the offered hand. "You fight with honor, small human," Korik said, loud enough for all to hear. "And wisdom beyond your size." The crowd erupted. What began as scattered applause grew into a thunderous ovation that shook the arena walls. Even some of the nobles who had been most skeptical joined in the acclaim. From the royal box, the Empress rose. Her voice cut through the noise. "Lieutenant Carter has demonstrated courage and honor today. While humans are indeed different from us, they possess virtues worthy of respect." Jake's knees nearly buckled with relief, but his eyes saw only one face in the crowd. Soralia was beaming, tears of pride streaming down her luminous cheeks. Later, in the quiet corridors away from the celebrating crowds, she found him. "I've never been prouder of anyone," she said softly, her hand finding his. "I'm proud to stand beside you," Jake replied, meaning every word. Soralia's eyes blazed with newfound determination. "I don't care about the rules anymore, Jake. I don't care about political marriages or imperial expectations. I want to be with you." As Jake's heart soared, he realized their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The war came like a storm front across the galaxy. Jake stood in the Empress's war room, studying the holographic display that showed the approaching Varnic fleet, hundreds of ships moving in perfect formation towards Zarella. The tactical situation reminded him of historical accounts of D-Day, but with the fate of an entire star system hanging in the balance. "The Varnic ruled our empire 3 centuries ago," explained General Zara, the Empress's top military advisor. Her scarred face spoke of battles fought and won. "They've returned to reclaim what they consider theirs. Their technology has advanced considerably since our last conflict." Ambassador Chen leaned over the tactical display, her diplomatic experience evident in how she assessed the political implications. "Earth's fleet is 3 days out. Can your defenses hold that long?" The Empress's expression was grim. "We'll have to. The alternative is unthinkable." Jake studied the enemy formation, noting patterns that reminded him of ancient Earth naval tactics. "They're using a classic pincer movement. If we can disrupt their coordination, you suggest we take offensive action?" General Zara's eyebrows rose. "Against such overwhelming numbers? Sometimes the best defense is a calculated strike," Jake replied, his military training taking over. "But we'll need unified command between human and Zarellan forces over the Following days, Jake found himself coordinating joint training exercises in the palace's vast courtyards. The sight reminded him of international military exercises he'd witnessed. Different uniforms, different equipment, but the same dedication to protecting home and family. Sorelia moved among the troops, her presence inspiring both human and Zarellan soldiers. She had traded her royal gowns for practical military attire, though she still moved with unmistakable grace. We fight not just for territory, she addressed a mixed group of warriors, but for the right to choose our own destinies. The real test came when the Galactic Council convened. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered in a circular chamber that reminded Jake of the United Nations General Assembly, but with beings from across the galaxy filling the seats. The air hummed with translated conversations in hundreds of languages. Sorelia stood to address the assembly, and Jake felt his heart swell with pride. She commanded the room with natural authority, her voice carrying to every corner. Honored delegates, she began, the Varnic threat extends beyond our empire. They seek to restore an age of conquest and subjugation. But we've learned that different peoples working together can achieve what none could accomplish alone. She gestured to Jake. Lieutenant Carter represents humanity's commitment to our alliance. His people have shown us that strength comes not from domination, but from cooperation. I ask you to stand with us, stand with Earth, and show the galaxy that freedom is worth defending. The debate that followed was intense. Some delegates argued for neutrality, others for appeasement. But gradually, Sorelia's words and Jake's quiet diplomacy during breaks began to sway opinion. When the vote came, it was close, but the council agreed to provide defensive support. The battle itself was like nothing Jake had ever imagined. Standing on the bridge of the flagship Aurora, he watched space light up with weapons fire that painted the darkness in brilliant colors. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers against the star field, while ships danced their lethal ballet across the void. Sorelia stood beside him, having insisted on taking an active command role despite the danger. Her tactical instincts were sharp, her understanding of Zarellan technology invaluable. Together, they coordinated the defense with a synchronization that surprised even them. Varnic heavy cruiser targeting the orbital platforms, reported communications. Officer Torres, her fingers flying over her console. Redirect Squadron 7, Jake ordered. Hit them from their blind spot. Confirmed, Sorelia added, her own commands flowing seamlessly with his. The tide began to turn when Jake proposed a desperate gambit, a direct strike on the Varnic command ship. It would require piloting a fighter through the heart of the enemy formation, but success could shatter their coordination. I'll go, Jake said, already moving toward the hangar bay. Not alone, Sorelia replied firmly. We're stronger together. As they flew through the chaos of battle, ships exploding around them like deadly fireworks, Jake felt that strange connection he'd experienced in the arena, not just to Sorelia, but to something larger. This wasn't just about military victory. It was about proving that cooperation could triumph over conquest. Their attack succeeded. The Varnic command ship's destruction sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet, and the remaining ships retreated into hyperspace. Standing on the palace balcony afterward, watching the stars shine peacefully once more, Jake and Sorelia held each other close. The Empress approached, her expression softer than Jake had ever seen it. You've brought honor to our empire, Lieutenant Carter, she said. Both of you have shown us a new path forward. 6 months after the war's end, Jake stood in the same moon garden where he and Sorelia had first shared their secrets. But tonight was different. The garden had been transformed for celebration. Bioluminescent flowers had been coaxed into new patterns of light, creating a natural cathedral that reminded Jake of the northern lights dancing over his childhood home in Alaska. Representatives from dozens of worlds had gathered for the ceremony that would formally establish the Galactic Cooperation Accord, a document Jake and Sorelia had spent months crafting. The agreement would replace the old empire's rigid hierarchy with a federation based on mutual respect and shared governance. Dr. Vasquez approached, her academic robes replaced by elegant formal wear. Nervous? She asked with a knowing smile. A little, Jake admitted, adjusting his dress uniform. The same uniform he'd worn when first arriving on Zarella, now decorated with honors from multiple worlds. It's not every day you help reshape galactic politics, or marry an alien princess, added Captain Rodriguez with a grin. The veteran pilot had become something of a legend herself, her tactical innovations during the war earning respect across the galaxy. The ceremony began as Zarella's 3 moons reached alignment, a rare celestial event that occurred only once every 7 years. The Empress, resplendent in ancient ceremonial robes, stood before the assembled crowd. Her acceptance of the marriage had been perhaps the greatest surprise of all, a recognition that love could indeed transcend political boundaries. Today we witness not just the union of two hearts, the Empress proclaimed, her voice carrying across the garden, but the birth of a new age. An age where different peoples can find common ground among the stars. Cerelia appeared at the garden's entrance, and Jake's breath caught as it had on that first night. She wore a gown that seemed woven from starlight itself, her silver hair crowned with flowers that pulsed gently with their own inner radiance. But it was her smile radiant with joy and love that made Jake's heart race. As she walked down the petal-strewn path, Jake thought about the journey that had brought them here. The frightened young diplomat who had first set foot on Zarella seemed like a different person now. He'd found not just love, but purpose, a calling to bridge the gaps between different worlds and peoples. Ambassador Chen, serving as Earth's representative, stepped forward. The union we celebrate today represents more than personal happiness. It symbolizes the potential for all sentient beings to find understanding across the vast reaches of space. The vows they exchanged were a blend of traditions from both worlds. Jake spoke of his commitment to honor and protect, while Cerelia pledged her heart to their shared future. When they joined hands, the bioluminescent plants around them seemed to pulse brighter, as if the garden itself was celebrating. "You may kiss your bride," the Empress said, and Jake didn't need to be told twice. As their lips met, the assembled crowd erupted in cheers that echoed across the palace grounds. Fireworks, both human pyrotechnics and Zarellan light sculptures, painted the night sky in brilliant colors. It reminded Jake of New Year's celebrations in Times Square, but with the entire galaxy participating. Later, as the formal festivities wound down, Jake and Cerelia stood alone on the balcony where she had first asked him that surprising question. The stars seemed brighter tonight, full of infinite possibility. "Any regrets?" Cerelia asked, her head resting on his shoulder. Jake considered the question seriously. He thought of Earth, which he would always love but could no longer call home. He thought of the career he'd left behind, the simple life he might have had. Then he looked at his wife, his partner in love and in reshaping the galaxy, and smiled. "Only one," he said. Cerelia looked up with concern. "What's that?" "I regret that it took a falling pillar to make us really see each other." Her laughter was like music, ringing out across the garden. "Perhaps the universe has its own plans for bringing hearts together." As if summoned by her words, a shooting star streaked across the alien sky. Jake made a wish not for himself, but for all the beings across the galaxy who might one day find the courage to reach across the void and touch another soul. The moon garden rustled softly around them, and Jake realized he was exactly where he belonged, not just on